Fantastic guests. What's interesting about these guys is they've all worked as media agency side and are now media specialists at some leading advertisers globally and in the UK. So they've got unique experience and unique insight into what we're going to talk about, which is what is the point of a media agency in 2023. So I'll invite everybody on and introduce you all. So we've got Susie. Lucky you're coming out in the right order, that's good. Susie's Media and Communications Director of Coty UK and Ireland. You know Coty is a world-leading company with illustrious brands of cosmetic, skincare and fragrance. Susie spent her early career in Publicis, Group M and Omnicom, strategy, planning and buying roles. We've got James from Expedia, where he's the Global Director of Media Planning. Also, background agency science, decade-long stint in Mediacom's trading team. He joined Expedia 4 years ago to build an in-house global team that now manages planning and buying for about $1 billion across a dozen markets with 60 media experts. So it's a very, very different perspective on the role of agencies. And then we've got Beatrice Boue, who, as Greg just referred to, is French and said that talks about tears in the eyes, hopefully not during the panel. B has over 20 years experience in the media agencies in the UK, from luxury to FMCGs, worked across Omnicom, Group M and Havas, and she's responsible for media strategy and activation globally for De Beers. And then finally, my partner in crime, Scott Moorhead, managing partner, co-founder of the Aperto Partnership. He's been providing media consultancy to leading international advertisers for the last 6 years, and he comes from a media agency background across Havas, across Publicis and Omnicom, in media trading and digital performance. So lots and lots to talk about there. So I'm going to take a seat, and we'll start with.
Get comfy.
So, oh, this is lovely, isn't it? Susie, we'll start with you. It's been a little while since you were agency side, but do you maybe reflect some of your observations on the evolution of media agencies since your time there?
Yeah, so I think, and in fact I was thinking about this question just before I came on, and I think it's a double-edged sword, to be perfectly honest, because in one instance, obviously the landscape is so much more fragmented than it was 10 years ago. There's a lot more channels, routes in that the planners need to think about. But then on the other hand, actually I think some of the craft has probably been simplified or stripped out when, we used to be able to think about really bespoke solutions or spend time thinking about different trading options and kind of like in bespoke deals just for the clients. Whereas I think there's a lot more of the homogenized single way of trading, rates, group deals and everything. So I think that's one big difference, as I say, complexity, but then also lack of craft. And then I think one of the other things, and some of it's probably taking some of the fun out of it, but a lot more accountable with all of the metrics and measurements and certainly kind of like short-term KPIs that result in the long-term success or client success. And actually the result as a client now, what I'm asking my agency for is very much what are the results, let's optimize in plan and everything. So it's a lot more accountable, as it were. I would say they're my two big things.
James, you've obviously got a slightly different relationship now with media agencies, but if you reflect on your time agency side, how do you think things have changed to today?
I loved my time agency side. It was a lot of fun. And I mean, I felt when I was there, we were very much doing the end-to-end media services for all the different clients. And gradually, over my time, then you started having the consultancy side of things come in. And obviously, measurement across so many clients has become more and more important. And as Susie said, it's quite complex now. Maybe the funds come out of it because of the accountability. But there's just so much work to be done. And it seems like not enough people as well. And so it's really getting to a tricky time. So I speak to quite a few of my friends who are still in the industry, that there is the same work, if not more work, more accountability. Just trying to plough through that with not enough heads is really getting quite tricky now.
B, your reflections on the change in how agencies work and considering, Susie talked about maybe changing sort of the craft of media.
So, I mean, I only left like media agency 8 months ago, right? So this is all fresh for me to be client side. And I really enjoyed my time in media agencies as well. And I've been through quite a few groups. So the model has evolved from when I started, when really it was led by TV buyers, for TV buyers. It was all about the TV deals. And the planners, which I was around, were just like here to support them. And then we moved, and the press buyers also. Yeah. And we moved into an era where media neutrality and strategy and really having these big ideas and not just being a supplier, but being a business partner became really important for the media agencies. And as you said, like we were all really trying to tailor deals and craft things around what the overall approach for the client was. So it was very client centricity. But then we moved into an era, I found in my last maybe 10 years, where the roles were very fragmented within the agency. Mm-hmm. You had the tech people against the strategy people. You had everybody really much in their swim lane and their verticals. And it was really hard to make right hand speak to left hand. So at the end, the clients all felt like they were not getting what they wanted. So they were going to find external consultants, and another little bit here, and another little bit there. And it became this patchwork of consultants that were supplementing to the media agency roles. And this is where I found myself thinking, hey, I think I'm going to go client side, because the model right now is potentially not adapted to every client.
So that's an interesting theme. You think the underserving of client needs, your ultimate customer needs. Scott, you obviously get unique insight into lots of different agencies.
Yeah, I mean, as a external consultant, and one of the primary things that we do is we help advertisers work with media agencies. And I think when you talk about how they've evolved, is actually the challenge we get set is how should we work with a media agency? And the starting point of that is what do you need? And what is a media agency? So media agencies all fit, like they're not the same thing. No agency, no group, no market works in the same way. So what we help clients do is we try and build agency models around them, and then you use an agency for what you need them to do. Like they shouldn't be all you can eat buffets. It shouldn't be like, it should be clearly defined. So agencies can be, in some circumstances, the group that just buys you a TV. They can do that. They can do the full scope media and planning and strategy and measurement. They can do all of that. They can also act in some ways as media owners, where you go by your outcomes and go and approach it in that different way. So, I think it's how have agencies changed. I think yes, they're amazing at evolving and fitting around their entire client suite. But as a client, you have to decide what you want from them rather than just working around the what they present to you as a range of options.
So James, come back to your model, because you're fully in-house in the markets you're in-house, right the way through to AV, planning and buying. Obviously, lots of agencies see in-housing as an existential threat to their business models. What were the sort of considerations for you in that in-housing journey?
So for us, as you say, 95% of our investment is done through our in-house media agency. We class ourselves as an in-house media agency. We've been moving it in-house over the last 5 to 10 years or so. And reasons for that, we are a tech company. We've got huge amounts of customer data, huge amounts of intricate business performance data. And we feel we can build better communication strategies with all of our data than maybe a third party could, because we can't share everything. We can't share all the context. We know everything that's going on there. Also, being part of a tech company, we're run by engineers and analysts. There is such a bedrock of measurement and understanding and analytical thought. So for us, bringing media in-house was relatively easy because we only needed to invest into media talent and tooling because we had that foundation of engineering and evaluation there as well. Then when it actually comes to the measurement side, absolutely key for so many brands, but it's what our whole business runs on, it's test and learn. And so for us, we need to have 100% confidence and understanding of what we've actually bought so we can then go and apply that to our measurement side of things. And we feel like because we are owning the buying, we're owning the planning, we can have that relationship with our analysts and get them to completely understand exactly what we have gone and bought. We're also finding that with vendors, we like to have a deep strategic partnership with vendors. They know their products better than anyone, and we want them to understand our business so that we can work really closely with them and build bespoke packages which work for Expedia Group, that really are getting the best out of their opportunities there. And again, we feel going through a third party, stuff gets lost in translation, not everything gets across. We really feel we can build those long-term partnerships with them. Also, kind of reasoning for us bringing it in-house is we're very fortunate. We've got large levels of investment. We invest into the big markets and we invest significant amounts of money into big media channels. So we can actually sit at the top table and be able to put together deals, be able to make the most of the market mechanics, the trading mechanics in each of these markets. And then kind of, for me, the main reason why we brought it in-house is being a tech company, it's all about speed. We're constantly changing, constantly iterating, constantly improving. And for us to sort of be able to do that, we want to be able to have that control ourselves. We feel kind of by working with a third party, we're not always in control of exactly how we're improving things, where are we going. So for example, a request will come through from the business, they need a point of view or a plan. We can deliver that in a number of minutes if that's what's required, rather than actually having to brief an agency, show them the context, wait for a response. So for us as a media team, it now means we can actually run the same kind of pace as the rest of the organisation is. So we're really part of the organisation.
It's great stuff. Beatrice, you sort of contrast that with De Beers, where you run a much smaller central media team, working across the globe. The implications of things like mediated relationships with media partners, tech vendors, speed and agility, how do you sort of manage that versus your requirements from media agency partners?
So we have a very small team globally in media, very small compared to the proportion of the marketing spend we've got. Because, for example, we've got a creative studio in-house that has a very large team to do the creative work. For media, what we need is to have a partner, which we have, that has the footprint globally, because we need to be able to activate our central strategy. We're a luxury house with a house of diamond. We have a very luxury positioning. So we really need to make sure that there is no deviation in market and that the central strategy is governed from London, but that the market can adapt with their local calendar and local commercial moment. But at the same time, we're trying to be more and more rigid about how we manage our brand proposition globally, because we need to accelerate that. And to do that, we need to have this footprint with our local media agency that help us activate, that help us also come back and do we have meeting where you have De Beers local, De Beers global, the local agency, the global agency, and we have this very healthy conversation where we're trying to see why sometimes what we're trying to do globally is not working locally, but then we all move toward the same direction. We also need agencies to help us with accelerating e-commerce, obviously. We're all there. We are in the infancy of it, and we really need their support for that. So we have a very good team. We've got someone who just came from Estée Lauder, so it's fabulous. So for us, we're really accelerating that environment. But on the media, on the paid media side, the agencies helping us, and the agencies, because we've got two agencies, are helping us just navigate that.
And Susie, Coty reasonably famously or infamously flirted with in-housing some activities. You've obviously got in-house media capability with you and your team, but do you want to maybe talk about your decisions to in-house some aspects of media and why you wound that back?
Yeah, so there are a few things. And actually listening to James, I was kind of like motivated. I wanted to kind of go, oh yes, but how about what? So Coty, I think for an in-house model, you need to be 100% committed to actually put the resource, the structure, the time, get the experience. And actually, in your point with regards to why it's so important for you and why it works for Expedia so well is your huge amounts of owned first-party data and customer data that you work on. Coty, in total contrast, has very, very little first-party data. We don't even, only on a couple of our brands, operate with the D2C model. We rely very heavily on our retailer partnerships and everything. And a few years ago, there was a thought, because in-housing was a bit of a buzz, probably going back about kind of like 5 years ago, of in-housing, and particularly digital media in-housing. So there was, Coty bought a very small digital agency to then bring all of that skill and expertise in-house. But we quickly realised that actually the setup, because we didn't put enough resource or really thought it through, and this is in total transparency, it meant that we weren't able to attract the best talent to work in the in-house team. We didn't necessarily have the same gravitas with media partners, with vendors, with tech solutions that actually working with a big agency group can sometimes bring you. And also there was sometimes actually from there was a very biased view with regards to how we should be growing in the digital landscape, and certainly our performance metrics, versus I do think there's a real skill that agencies can bring to the table if you really treat them like a business partner, to actually challenge a client on what we think is naturally right, but be challenged in the landscape. Because one of the things, so we ended up pivoting after 18 months. We realised that actually our growth trajectory and our ambitions weren't going in the right direction. And I'm actually quite proud, because it was quite a brave decision of Coty, that rather than just trying to think, okay, we'll just crack on, something's going to change, we actually did make the decision to pivot back and actually take all of digital services back into our agency group.
So what do you think? Once bitten, twice shy? Is it something that you consider in the future, or for some of the reasons you talked about, sort of scale, access to the...
I mean, you never say never. What I would say is that we've not gone back wholesale. So again, another point to that James mentioned with regards to actually having direct relationships with media partners, making sure that they know direct from the horse's mouth what our business ambitions are, what our challenges are, and actually we now directly Coty with a large raft of media partners. We have direct JBPs or letters of intent that actually don't involve our agency. So we still have that, but then it is that the agency is brought in, because I think that's where almost the kind of like the making sure that you're not wrapped up in like a bias of a certain agency group, and you never know when you're going to change agencies as well. So we need to make sure that we're working with partners in a way. So we've not pivoted back almost like 100% back to just putting the full strategy, planning, trading, middleman relationship of an agency. But it's hopefully, I'm confident that where we are now is in this healthy, more collaborative media way of working.
But does that resonate?
If I can jump on that, because I completely agree, it's very important, I think, in the new model on how to work with agency, to have a hybrid model that actually fit the client and what they need. And here, I mean, we all have got different approaches, and for me, like we're a very small spender compared to the Cartier, the Tiffany of this world, where we are small, but we need to have a direct relationship with some of the media owners, because we need to explain our trajectory. We need to explain what we're trying to achieve. And when you have a requirement like we have for, really specific environments and specific audiences, and you're very picky, if you just go via the agency, they would say like, nah, your audience segment's too small. So you just say, well, hang on, what can we do? And it's by talking to some partners that we kind of evolve our thinking, and we carry on getting educated so we can really be close to what we are doing. And I really feel like each client needs to have its own model with the agency, which, having been an agency, sometimes the agency try to have their own model that they try to push through, and you just need to find that balance.
And Scott, you sort of touched on earlier helping clients design that model. What do you think some of the considerations should be in that?
Well, media agencies are, for most advertisers, James, Expedia, and a handful of examples aside, are probably one of your, if not your most important marketing partner. They can provide you with a platform to really impact growth on your business. And what you need them for at different times will vary from week to week, from month to year, depending on what's happening in your own business. And so what we find is like when we speak to clients is what they need at that one time just changes. There are trends and there are themes and there are needs and there's new things in the market that mean that media is a harder problem to solve. And what media agency is great at is they're really there to help you and to support you. So yes, a media agency is not a single thing that just buys you a bit of TV. They are a strategic partner with an array of up-to-date, intelligent, strategic thinking people who are there to help you all of the time. And most people can't afford to support massive media teams within their thing. You know, 9 times out of 10, we would advise a client not to think too much about in-housing because it's because you're French. But because agencies also don't just like help you do your work, but they're really flexible to work with. You can use them to do what you need at what time. So the more effort and thinking you put into how you use your media agency, the more you're going to benefit from the utility. And so that is what is good about a media agency in their structure. They are ever evolving things, and many of our clients now, we did go through a period of a trend which was all about data-driven marketing, which is still super important. But one of the biggest conversations we have at the moment is that conversation about return to brand. And actually, again, that's where agencies can again help clients who need to move in that direction.
And so, James, it's interesting to talk about like your needs from media agencies. Obviously, totally different, but you do have relationships with some media agencies. Do you want to?
Yeah. So we, as I say, we're 95% of our media investment is through our in-house agency. We still use agencies in our main markets for media where we don't invest significant amounts, so we can't justify investing into tooling and talent. Mm-hmm. So, for example, radio or press, if we want to do a campaign there, we will brief our media agency and they will plan and execute against that, and then we just need to ensure that what is put together there is entwined with our overall kind of holistic media strategy that the in-house agency has actually put together. But then what I'm enjoying at the moment working on and kind of really building this out is we have now started working with an agency from a consultancy capacity. So we use this agency every now and then when we have projects where we don't have the time or the resource to go and do it. So, for example, we want to go and invest into India in 2030. We don't have the time resource to go and look into India. What should we do there? So we'll work with our agency to do landscape analysis and really determine what would be the way of entering into that market. We also are using agencies from a consultancy point of view where I want to be dipping into the fresh perspectives and new ideas and ways of thinking, because I'm very aware we have got 60 media experts across the globe. We've got strategists, planners, buyers. They are part of the media industry. They're at the same conferences we're all at. They're on the same meetings, the same subscriptions. We buy into a lot of the same tooling that everyone else has. But we are Expedia Group, the media team. We really kind of zone in on Expedia data and build our strategies around that. And so I want to ensure that we're not blinkered just looking down that one direction, can open ourselves up to these fresh ideas. So this is exactly what the consultancy type of SOW is for. We work with our agencies to keep us abreast of what's going on. There may be new industry research or theoretical thinking, and kind of we work with them to determine how does that work for Expedia. So attention planning. How does attention planning work? How does it work for Expedia Group? How could we get it into our end-to-end media process that we do? So it's ensuring that we aren't just keeping ourselves in our little bubble of Expedia, keeping ourselves open to the wider world and getting these new ideas and fresh ideas through.
I think that's super important. And for me, with agencies in today's landscape, it's actually one of the differentiators of different agencies and different groups is how they can offer that consultancy. Yeah. My team at Coty is relatively small. Coty is a huge organisation, though. We're the 3rd largest beauty company in the world. And I always say, we are the beauty experts from a data and an insights perspective. Our CMI team is massive. From retailer data, we can tell you about our customers and all of our products, R&D. Beauty experts, yes. but I need my agency to actually be my media landscape expert and bring that consultation to me. And what was quite interesting for me is during the pandemic, purely because of commercial challenges, we ended up having to change our scope, and it was great flexibility because our agency partner knew the pressures that we were under, that they did offer that flex of reducing our scope of work. So it literally was, we went to a commission-only model to make sure that they were just a transactional media buyer for us, and that consultancy role was stripped out. And I think that's where it became evident to the business as a whole how important and valuable that insight and support, and making sure that media insight was still being brought to the table and fundamentally woven into our overall business strategy.
Scott, interesting commercially, do you think agencies undersell that sort of strategic value add versus the media buying side of things? Because there are a lot of models that are related to like throughput of spend.
I think most, if you spoke to any agency, leadership team, commercial team, they would all love to change the legacy commercial model. You know, so commission models don't work very easily. Gives flexibility to the client, but you know, not all campaigns happen. And some of the most valuable work that an agency does is the consultancy, is the strategy, it is the thinking. It's about guiding on where your brand should go. So I think most agencies are always looking to how they can evolve. And I don't mean moving from like a commission model to a retainer model. It's more, how can I start to sort of play in that consultancy type remuneration structure, and have clients appreciate the value that we actually contribute to their business. But that's a transition, and you know, I think it's where the market should go. But that involves the agencies wanting to do that and being quite forceful, as well as clients accepting that model and going with it as well.
Yeah, I mean, if I can you hear me? If I can build on that, it's when I was agency, like when you had the client service team doing all right, and you were bringing leadership thoughts, and you were bringing some new ideas, and the relationship with the client was going well, then you ended up in conversation about media value, and you know, that was the crux. Yeah. And at the end of sometimes some reviews and some pitch, they were completely forgetting what you gave them for a few years, because you were giving them of this leadership thoughts, you were making them evolve. And I think on the flip side now, on the client side, I'm really keen to make sure that while the bread and butter of the relationship of a media agency and its client is delivered, you ensure that you look at the strategic project, that you give them the brief to be able, and the permission to be able to look at them. Because sometimes the thought also is, hang on, we're not paying you like to just go and do this project, you know, like if you're not delivering on the day-to-day, so can you please keep on the day-to-day, and then we can talk about these big ideas later. So it's always having that balance and monitoring and you know, what comes to you, and giving them the forum to bring these ideas. And this is where you can flourish that relationship, because you end up being in a relationship which is just a supplier relationship with your media agency, which is not right.
So I'm really interested in that, because I reflect, so spending time with big organisations, that we spend a lot of time talking about being coaches and leaders and not managers or bosses. But a lot of that positive behaviour goes out the window when you start talking to an external partner, doesn't it? Suddenly you're like, all right, I'm back to being the boss. Do what I say, don't ask. Like, do you think it's the fault of advertisers that we've ended up with agencies working in the way that they do today?
One thing that I'll just point on that, and I suppose it's one of the things that I see the important part of my role actually within Coty, and I think where I add value potentially for our agency, is to be that filter. I think if some of the best, and this, sorry if I waffle, but I'm going to say some of the best client agency relationships you can have is when it is formed more of a partnership. So it's actually you only, as an advertiser, I know that I will only get out of my agency what I put in. So the quality of briefs, response, and actual kind of like mutual respect. When I joined Coty, my role was a new role. For them to actually bring in a director of media to actually own the agency relationship. And I think there's a lot of behaviours that sometimes marketeers don't understand, and you do have that more kind of like hierarchical or servile relationship but that's not how to foster the best partnership, and it's certainly not how to get the best ideas, the best solution, and fundamentally the willingness to understand our business. I think if you can get to a point with your agency relationship where you've got that respect and they've got passion to understand your business as much as we've got passion to, you know, understand their specialist skills and what they can help with, that's where you get the best work.
Yeah.
So
and
James,
sorry, we're at a TV conference, so I should talk about one of the areas in agencies that's most undervalued is actually the TV strategy, AV planning, TV buying team. They are such an integral part of every advertiser's media plan and work. They're an integral part of the agency.
I still get excited when they bring up like DDS live, live.
Exactly.
We all still love
still the black screen.
But it's like, I'm looking at the sponsors in this room. You guys have never made TV more complicated, in a good way, but never made it more complicated. And yet, it'd be very sweeping to say, but TV scope and TV buyers are still paid in old currency. And so you end up like agencies either evolve and try and, put more cost in other areas of the scope, or they create products to subsidise. TV buyers, TV strategists are undervalued in an agency, and they're certainly undervalued, I think, by advertisers, because they still live in a slightly older world. And I think, I'd love to see more people, you're starting to see now more people wanting to become TV buyers again, because TV's got more interesting, but it needs to also be reflected in the way that remuneration works in that area, because it's still one of the main reasons why you use an agency. It's one of the main reasons, it's certainly the main area where you're going to drive brand growth.
So we'll come back to that. Actually, I think this is really interesting. I was going to ask James quickly on as an internal agency are going to have a slightly different relationship with your colleagues, or I don't know if you have horrible terms like internal customers or anything like that. What do you think agencies can learn from the way that you deal as an internal agency with marketing stakeholders?
I think it's what Susie's saying. It's what we always work to, kind of within this agency-client relationship. We're trying to be partners, but for us being part of the same company, there is that natural partnership already. We are in all the same meetings. We're the media team. There's also creative comms planners, brand strategists. There's business marketeers. We've got an in-house creative team as well, and we're all part of this one brand org. So there is just the natural fact that we work together. There isn't a transactional relationship. We are building these strategies together. Mm-hmm. We've got, basically our traditional TV planner buyers are actually putting together our overall holistic media responses, because they've got such great background there. But they're also in the brief meetings, kind of 8 months before we're even doing a campaign, giving a view of, right, this is what we're looking at in TV, this is what's going on in out of home. These are some ideas that we've got, and so it all flows through the process. So media is so early on in the process, but we're constantly interacting with all of these different specialists throughout the brand org, so there is that natural partnership. Mm-hmm. And I think, as I say, that's exactly what you try and create between a brand and an agency. It's just a lot easier when you're all in the same office, being paid by the same person with the same ideas.
So that alignment of goals, objectives, mutual understanding. And B, they're sort of picking up what James is talking about and what Scott mentioned with the complexity of AV in particular. Is that going to change your relationship, you think, with the agency over the coming years?
I started sitting with the AV team when my first job, so they are complex. The complexity of AV is very interesting for a luxury brand, because obviously luxury brands start with storytelling, with these very 30-second, 60-second stories that the creative team explained to me we can't cut. And here I am, like the media person, you saying, no, I want the 6 seconds. I want the 6 seconds. Actually, I want the 5 for China, please. And they're like, come on, we need to tell the story. And I need to unpack, if you want, decant for them what the TV team is telling me, which I still know, but maybe in a few years' time I won't know anymore, because I would have been on the client side and I won't have the knowledge. Now I'm kind of lucky because I'm still of that knowledge in my luggages, but for how long? So yes, in the long term I will need them to carry on decanting to me what do you use when in the funnel, what works better, how do you measure, how do you use your data, how do you link everything together, how do you optimize and circle back into your strategy. All of that for me is super interesting, and it will come from this AV team where, I spend most of my budget in AV, VOD, like in videos, so I just need to know, and when I say videos, I'm saying social and social videos and any videos. I need to know where they work best, how they work together. And that, yes, definitely I will need to have the AV team coming to me and just decanting that.
So we have a room full of the world's finest TV experts, which I've been told. If you could ask for anything from them, we've got like a minute left, less than. Quickly, Susie, what would be your ask for the assembled TV experts in this room?
I would say, as just mentioned, we don't necessarily think, and we can't think about a TV strategy in its own right. For us as clients, it is a video strategy that is joining the dots, connected TV, online video, traditional broadcast TV, social, that they can't sit in silos. So, but also from a measurement point of view and from a reach point of view, but also from a mentality point of view, thinking about how does one piece of the jigsaw fit with an overall video strategy.
James?
For us, it's the same with TV experts, with how we use agencies, how we use all vendors. We just look for flexibility. We need the ability to move money between different products, even between different markets and things. We are a company which is run by engineers, analysts and finance people, and all of a sudden they might make a decision that Germany is not worth it because of X, Y and Z. We need the ability to move money out of markets as quickly as possible.
B?
Well, for me at the moment, it's really understanding how creatively it works for my video, because we've got lots of data about how my media is working, but more and more I need to justify how the creative is sticking, and within that, what are the elements that are working within those video and in TV. So for that, these are the environments that are quite interesting for me.
Last word from Scott.
I think we every week we have a conversation with a client or an agency, or we see a pitch or some transformation, and we still always have the same conversations. Don't forget what TV is great at. And that is how it can tell stories, how it can, it's still the best place to drive brand. So whatever we do when we're fiddling with it is don't forget that purpose, and and don't dilute that purpose, and help your agency partners, help your clients utilise the power of TV, because it's great.
Well, on that, brilliant. Thank you very much. Really appreciate your time. We'll hand back to Justin.